Chapter 1, Introductions to Engineering Research. First of all, what is research? Research is a systematic investigation of something in order to establish facts and reach to new conclusions. Research is a common thing in the academic field, particularly in the institutions of higher learnings. Students start to be exposed with the technique of research since their bachelor degree. In their final years of the study, students are to undertake the final year project, which is research in nature, in order to gain some experience in doing research. Students start involving with the research more actively in their postgraduate studies, such as masters and PhDs. And the lecturers of the universities and college, one of an essential part of their job scope is doing the research. Now let us first look at the characteristic of research. A research should be carefully done, the scope should be well defined, and the research should be done objectively and systematically. These are the nature of a research, which involves searching for knowledge and also formulations of a theory. This is a typical flow of research. It starts with formulations or hypotheses, followed by propositions of solutions, then data analysis, deductions, and ascertaining whether the conclusions fit the hypothesis. In layman terms, it starts with a scientific guess, which is known as the hypothesis, then followed by a series of rigorous analysis and study in order to ascertain whether the hypothesis is valid. The purpose of conducting research is to expand the existing knowledge base in a particular field. This makes the research as an essential part of the higher learning educations, where we need to constantly expand the knowledge base, seeking for new knowledge, and keep updated with the latest development of the technologies. While doing the research, we need to consider the practicality of the research. There should be a problem to be solved, and this problem should be quite important. The purpose here is so that the efforts that are put into the research can yield the maximum profits to the society and the communities. There will be efforts to be done by the researcher and also the contributions offered by the researcher. The efforts include reading a lot of books, finding and gathering a lot of informations, then conducting regular studies and analysis, and the findings of the studies will add to original contributions to the existing knowledge. This represents a typical cycles of a research, where there should be a practical problem, which is importance. This motivates research questions, and these research questions will define a research project, and by conducting the research project, we will get the result or answer, which helps to solve the problem. What you see here, research always starts with a problem, and the ultimate goal is to solve the problem, which in the reality, some problem can be quite complex, constituting many sub-problems and many aspects. This comes to the research questions. Sometimes we cannot solve the entire problem. Therefore, we will need to narrow down the problem into the sub-problems so that it is manageable by a research project. And the research project needs to be done carefully, objectively, and systematically, so that we obtain reliable result that leads us to answers to the problem, and hopefully this will solve the problems. So this search an entire cycle of a research. As long as the problem still exists, the cycle will continue. The research focus will focus on different minor parts of the problems. Various research projects can be conducted in order to find answer, and eventually the entire problem can be solved. The figure here shows a typical ways to identify a problem. This can be done in both ways. You may first identify the area, then choose the topic, and then choose a problem. Or you can define the problem first, identify the topics, and identify the area. Either way will do. Often, this will be an ongoing process throughout the research, as research by fundamentals is exploring into the regions of unknowns. We are doing planning, studying and analysis of something, and whichever the outcome is, it is sometimes that beyond our expectations. Therefore, by the end of your research, when you need to properly define the problem that you are solving, normally you will have to go through this process on and off again, refine and refine until you reach to a specific problems that can be solved by your research project. This slide shows the process of developing knowledge. It normally starts with the observations, going through a process, and eventually yields the outcome in terms of the model. The observations can be the measurements in the laboratory, which give the conditions to what's happened. Then the process is done in order to get the results, which involve the algorithms, procedures, arrangement, and also the reference design. And then eventually leads to the models to represent the situations. The models is actually an approximate, simplified ways of describing the interactions, which can be represented by the statistical relationship, figure, mathematical equations, maps, graph, pictures, descriptions, and others. In the simpler way to explain, in developing of knowledge, we will need to study something, carry out some tests in the laboratories. The tests may not necessarily in the laboratory, depending on the fields of the study. That means there will be survey and study under the category of observations. Then there will be process done in order to obtain the results. The process needs to be rigorous and systematic in order to increase our chance to get reliable results. Only when we base on reliable result, we can make right decisions and findings. Lastly, we will have to translate this into something easier to understand in order to represent the topics that we are studying.